Welcome back, YouTubers. So we have our project car, the 2004 Nissan Pathfinder Armada, and today we're going to be taking a look at the air ride suspension. On this particular vehicle I purchased, the previous owner was tired of replacing the air shocks, so he opted to have whoever his mechanic was to disable the system and install standard shocks. So I am towing a trailer with this vehicle, and with regular shocks the back still sags no matter how much tension I put on my tow hitch assembly. So I would like to put the air shocks back into the vehicle so that the rear is no longer sagging and I can have a level ride. So to do this, there's a bit of confusion on the internet that hopefully I will clear up or I will discover through this process. But essentially in the service manual for the air shock system, we have a bunch of fuses. So all of these fuses are at play, 19, 14, 12, and those are all underneath here. Those are all good for me. There's some fuses in the engine compartment as well, which are also good. It looks like those. There is this suspension control unit that is buried behind the wall there next to where the jack stores. So you got to take that entire panel out. I hope to not have to do that. It looks like it's connected from what I can see. So I'm assuming it is working. It's still plugged in. There is the compressor itself and the solenoid for releasing the air. This is where the confusion comes in, because it says suspension, air compressor, and compressor motor relay, and it lists two relays there, 130 and 131. Physically looking at the compressor, I do not see any relays, so if they exist, they are somehow embedded inside of it. However, if you were to go look at Nissan's website, if I can get my mouse to work here, on Nissan's website, you can pull the parts. So this is the compressor, if I can focus. So that's for the compressor right there. So for the compressor, it gives me 3 options for parts for 2004. They're all the same part number, as you can see here. If I were to look at any newer year vehicle, I looked at 2005 through 2009, it is the same part. So if it is the same part for all vehicles, then I doubt that the relay is dedicated to just the 2004 specific compressor. It's all the same part number. It's all the same compressor. So that led me to believe that the relay is not in the compressor unit and it is elsewhere. So if we do a search on parts for relays, it just so happens in the front of the hood and where it says A, which is behind the battery, there are 2 relays there. And those relays are for motor, whatever that means, and rear level suspension. So that is where our relay is, or at least that's one of them. I don't see a second relay in this setup, unless there's one inside the controller itself. So this appears to be the primary relay that we're looking to focus on. So it is the one closest to the passenger. Like I said, there's 2 relays, one towards the front where the headlights are. That is this one, the motor. And the second one is this rear level suspension. So that's the one of concern for us. And there's the part number for it, if you were to have to purchase it. So what we're going to do in this video first is, I don't know what works, what doesn't work. I know this air suspension compressor is not turning on. I have standard shocks in the vehicle currently. Before I start purchasing stuff, I want to know what's working, what isn't working. So I want to somehow go through a process of testing the system. So I do not have the Consult software to do the testing through the software. So we're going to have to go ahead and manually do some validation here. So the first thing I would like to do is to test our height sensor. That seems to be a common issue. Our height sensor is attached to our lower control arm, and essentially if the lower control arm goes upward, meaning it's compressing, that's an indication to turn on the pump to put air in the shocks to increase air pressure and push the vehicle up. So I had seen another YouTube video where somebody was taking this connector for the height sensor, this C8, it's labeled as C8. It is a 3-pronged connector, and we will look at shortly. It's this 3-pronged connector, 1, 2, 3. And if we look at what the 3 wires go to, the wiring harness has a voltage reference output. It has a height sensor input and a height sensor ground. So they were basically taking all 3 of these and interconnecting them all together. I would imagine that is creating a short. And we want to basically put some voltage on this height sensor input and see if our compressor turns on. So we're going to need to have the vehicle on for that. Additionally, the manual has the ability for us to do some basic checking. So again, this is the height sensor control. We could check for voltage on port 1, on pin 1. We can check for continuity. So we'll do some of these basic tests as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First thing I need to do is get the vehicle ignition on. Okay, so you can see the check suspension light came on momentarily and then it went out. It never comes back on. So I'm not even getting that indicator at this point. So let's begin our troubleshooting. So here we are underneath the vehicle. As you can see, there's all new suspension down here. That's in another video if you're interested in that. But let me back away a little bit. So here's our compressor. Okay, so the compressor has a wiring harness here with 4 pins. And additionally, there's a separate height control. So that's the height sensor. And that has the 3 pins. And this unit, basically this control arm goes up and it moves this arm here, which then the sensor should sense and then apply voltage to the wiring harness. So we want to go ahead and do some testing. So we're going to need a voltmeter. So I have one here. And we're going to need some paper clips. Hopefully the ones I have are the right size. So I have some paper clips here, so I can hook everything up. So I'm going to go ahead and put this phone camera in a tripod so to stabilize stuff here. So let me do that. So here's our wire with our harness. We just need to press this button in, pull this out. And this is why we need the paper clips, although my paper clips may be too big, so I may need to get smaller paper clips. Let's test this out. No, they're a good size. Okay. So what we're going to do here is, based on the diagram, the connector, we assume this is pin 1 here because it shows on the screen there's going to be a little connector, and that's up here on the top. So we'll give this a try. So pin 1 should be here, and pin 1 is voltage. So you don't want this to touch any metal part. You're going to create a short. So we need this guy in there. And then I've got my voltmeter set to voltage. Okay, on this bolt I do get 5 volts. So let me show you real quick. We're going to go to the positive. Tangled up wires. We're going to hook one end to a negative, which is an unpainted surface. Make sure you can see that. So it's an unpainted surface, or in this case it's the bolt. Okay, so we definitely have 5 volts, so we know we're good there. Okay. Next thing we need to do is test for continuity. So we're going to go into pin 3. So we were in pin 1 here, now we're in pin 3. So pin 3 is ground. And we need to check for continuity. So right now I'm on voltage, 20 volts. I'm going to bring it over to basically our ohm setting. And I'm just going to set it arbitrarily to some value here. And we're going to test for continuity. So right now there's no connection whatsoever. If there's continuity, that goes to basically 0. Okay, so there is a connection there, and there's a little bit of resistance, but maybe that's okay, I don't know yet. So I think we're okay there. So now is a question of determining whether the compressor works. So essentially, let me go back up here so you could see. So essentially we have a positive voltage, and then we have ground, our negative. And in the center, this is the input into the height sensor, or the height controller, which is inside the rear of the vehicle. And if that is functioning, we should have voltage applied to that. So right now there should be no voltage on this center pin because nothing's happening. I'll just give it a try, just to validate. We've got to go back to voltage. And on 20 volts, because we're a 12 volt system, there is no voltage. Okay, so now I'm touching these two together, and I get nothing. So, the compressor doesn't turn on. So now I'm tempted to believe that our compressor is bad. I was anticipating this to turn it on. It could be quite possible that our relay is bad if the wiring heads back to the relay from here. So that could be a possibility. So I need to check the schematics and see what I'm going to test next. Okay, we're in the back seat. I have to get this plastic molding out of the way. But as you can see, I had to remove the seatbelt bolt from the back and from the front. So you just pop the cap off and just use a socket. So then we can pull this back. And that there is the unit in question that we need to test continuity with. So we had a continuity failure from that middle pin of the height sensor to the ground. There's an additional test to validate the height sensor to pin 3. So we're going to give that a try. Okay, so I got the plug off. Basically have to use a screwdriver to remove it. There's a little clip right at the front of the unit. Right there that I have to push. So basically that's pin 3. It's the white wire is the pin 3. So pin 3, I'm running a wire down to my voltmeter. And we're going to test it for continuity. We're at 1, which means maximum resistance, no connection. So we're going to hook up pin 2. Okay, so we have pin 2 connected. Now we need to hook up our wire. So we definitely have continuity in the wire. So pin 2 makes its way up to the controller, but once it gets to the controller, there's some break in the connection in the circuit somewhere. So now we're going to have to trace out the circuit to figure out where we go next. Okay, so far our checks are okay. Next we're going to work on the actual compressor. There we go. So this top part, we have the engine off currently. So pin 1 we should have ground. So this is the top where the locking mechanism is. So pin 1 is, pin 1 is here. So it's saying we should have ground. So if I set my voltage, so we're going to check for continuity again with the engine off. So we put our pin there. And then we touch a ground. And you can see we have continuity. So we know that pin is good. So we need to check for voltage. There should be 12 volts on pin 2. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have voltage to check on pin 2. Pin 1 we just did. And if we connect pins 1 to 2 with a actual voltage, we should get this to turn on. I don't really have a way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it to volts. We're going to turn the vehicle on, and we're going to check our pin number 2 for voltage. So I'm going to go turn the vehicle on. Accessories on. We're in the wrong pin because it switched on me. So we need to be in pin 2. Okay, let's go back up here so you can see. Again, this is the top where the clip is. Pin 1 is here. I'm in pin 2. Okay, I'm not getting 12 volts. I'm getting 7.5 approximately. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the vehicle on just to see if it has to do with that. battery removed. So as you can see, this is the passenger compartment. So towards the passenger compartment, this one here is the relay indicated in the parts website that is controlling. I'm going to remove that. This is a 10 millimeter. This is our relay for controlling our suspension. So we're going to have to try to independently test this to make sure it's clicking and working. So if that's all working, then it may be our control unit that's bad, which is probably very expensive, so I hope it's not the case. But I don't know at this point. Alright, so front and back of the relay. I'm going to go ahead and remove everything from this. Okay, so this is the relay from the front. It's installed this way, and we want to see if it clicks. So this is the side in which the voltage will be applied to click and open. Well, by default it's open. It'll close the circuit so that then there's power through here, and this will be the power that takes care of the compressor. So we're going to see if there's something wrong with this by basically applying voltage. Hello. So we're listening for a click. If I can get my hands to deal with this. So we're listening for a click. So we can hear the click. So we know it's working. Okay guys, a little update. So manual indicates to check voltage on the suspension control unit. So as you can see here, pin 6, pin 7, and pin 16 should all have voltage when the vehicle ignition is turned on. I can validate 12 volts on the pin 16 going to ground. So we look good there. On the ignition and on the battery side, it's a little bit hot, it seems. It's about 14 volts, which seems a little high to me. But in any case, where there is voltage, there's voltage, and where there's continuity, there's continuity. When the engine or ignition is turned off, there is continuity on the ports that should be grounded. So the issue that we're seeing here is this port 9, which is connected into our connection for the pump or the compressor, is only pushing 7.5 volts to 8.5 volts, and it should be pushing 12. So at this point, I'm suspecting something's going on the inside of this control unit, and I just found brand new ones are about 850 bucks, so I don't really want to purchase a new one. Here we go. So basically the part number that I have is the 7S600, and it was superseded by this 602. So I'm looking at the price for the new updated part, $831. So that's pretty pricey, particularly if it doesn't fix the issue. So I found a used one on eBay, and the used one was 50 bucks. So here's some other ones, like 600 for a new one, or you can get these used ones for like under 100 bucks. I found this one for 50, so I went ahead and purchased this one. So as soon as this comes in, we'll swap it in and we'll test to see if we're getting the 12 volts that we expect to see going to the compressor. And it'll be to be continued until we receive this part. So I'm going to leave this panel ajar because I have to remove that guy there. So right now the cable's disconnected. I'll go ahead and just remove it now until I get the new part. So we will continue once I receive that new part, and hopefully that resolves our issue. Additionally, let me just mention that the relays up front, both of those relays are the same relay, so I swapped them, and swapping them didn't do anything. So I can't assume both of them are bad because the other one's probably doing something else, and I don't have any other indicator. So at this point I'm assuming the relay is good. I haven't tested it independently, but I swapped it with another one and they both perform the same, so I have to assume that that relay is good. So our control unit is our main focus at this point. So wish me luck, and when we receive that, we'll give it a test. Alright, so we're back. We went ahead and ordered a bunch of parts. So this is the height sensor. It's essentially like a variable resistor. So when the air is low, this will start to decline to a point to where it allows the voltage to turn on the compressor, and then it pushes it back up and turns the compressor off. So it basically goes up and down. So the old one didn't appear to show proper functioning, so I'll kind of show you what's going on here with this one. So we have our wire harness. And we can see our positive and negative, and then the center wire here is kind of the sensor output. So we should get a change in resistance. So if we touch these together, you'll see there's no resistance. There's continuity in the wire because it's directly connected. So if we were to just take one of these and hook it on to one of the pins, and then the other in the center pin, if I'm able to do this with one hand, maybe. Since these pins are quite small. There we go. Alright, so there we go, we got a reading. And if we were to readjust this, so it seems like the sensor's changed, we should get a different reading. Again, I gotta fish my fingers in here to do this. There we go. So see, we get a different reading. So that's basically how that works. This just moves and gives resistance to the voltage for the compressor. Okay, this is our new control unit. So the old control unit was only providing 7.5 to 8.5 volts to the compressor. So that didn't work. So we got a new one of those for 50 bucks. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test the compressor. So I already tested the one on the vehicle. Here's the new compressor. So we can see again we have a positive and a negative, and a positive and a negative. So we're going to apply voltage, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. So on the back of these probes, I have the ability to stick a wire in there, like so. And like so. Okay, now if I hook this up to a battery source, I can then use these probes. You don't want to touch the probes at that point because they'll short. And we'll touch the compressor leads, and we should get the compressor to turn on. So one set of wires is going to be for the release of air, and the other is to turn the compressor on to produce air. And then it has like this filter membrane for sucking in the air for the compressor. So I'm going to get set up for this. Okay, so here's how I'm going to do this. I have this portable battery jumper. So I can hook up my positive lead. Okay, so we have our positive, and we may want to make sure we keep this away from the negative so we don't short the battery. And then here's our negative. Okay, so now we should hear the compressor turn on when we hook this up. Okay, so the red wire here is our positive and the black is our negative. So those are the pins we want to connect to. So yep. So pump works. And then our exhaust valve. So we can hear it click on. So the other one doesn't work. I had already gone under the vehicle and hooked it up to the harness, and basically I get an arc when I hook up the power, so there's a short in the system. And on the other one, nothing happens. The compressor doesn't turn on. So we know the compressor's bad as well, so that's why we purchased this. So we're going to go ahead and install this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's basically just, if you look at the top of this one, we just have the screws or bolts that go in here and then down here. So one or two bolts on either side we'll find, and we'll see what size those are. So I'm trying to pull these air hoses off. I'm not seeing anything I'm doing here. There we go. So we got the two air hoses. One. There's two. And then we'll try to see if we can get this bolt off. Let's see. 11 millimeter. No, it looks like 10. Alright, so it's 10 millimeter. And lots of rust on this one. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and remove these bolts, as you can see. Those two there. And then up front, if I can get the camera there, there'll be two more. It's kind of dark, you can't see, but there's two more over here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this now and come back. Okay, so we're able to remove the old compressor. This hose basically had this connection on there because this is where it sucks in the air. I had to pull it off with pliers, Additionally, 3 out of the 4 bolts broke, so now I got to drill those out, or easy out them. So it's going to take me some time to do that. So I'm going to work on that. If we look underneath, this hole here above the spring is the hole that the intake hose went into for the air supply. So that's what this piece fit into. It goes into there, and there's these little clips on the side, so you got to kind of get a screwdriver in there to pull it out a bit with pliers, and then push these 2 pieces in and try to pull it out. Okay, I'm gonna have to also remove these little crimped ends for the hose, but my first priority is to drill these stupid broken bolts out. So I'm going to work on that next, and then I'll come back. Alright, so we got the old holes drilled out, and then I found these bolts that I had laying around that were basically the same type of length and setup. Self-tapping bolts. I believe they came from a garage door that I installed, but nonetheless they seem to work. I don't need anything too fancy back here. So those are the backs, those are the fronts, and now we need to get the air hose into the frame. I have a lot of shavings of metal everywhere, so I don't really want to lay in the metal. Let's see if I can clean over here a little bit. Let's see if I can even get up here. So you can see it goes into this hole here, snaps into place, and then now we're good. So now we just have to hook up our air hoses, which means we got to take these pieces off. So I'm going to see if I can grab some needle nose pliers to see if I can get these removed, and then we can insert them in here. Alright, these came off actually without pliers. They came off pretty easy. They're kind of made to pinch. Can I get a focus? There we go. They're kind of made to pinch, so you got to pull them up a little bit and then grab this ring at the top and pull it down, and it comes right off. So it's made not to really get pulled out once it's in. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and run these new ones in. Alright, that's 1. That's 2. Go back and forth a bit, make sure they're in there pretty good. Alright, so the compressor portion is done. Now I'm going to replace this height sensor. So let me get the camera set up for that, and I'm going to clean up these metal shavings so I don't roll around in them. Okay, so the height sensor here, there's 2 bolts behind here that are 10 millimeter. So we're going to take these off. And again, hopefully they don't break. This first one is okay. And you may have to get, this is the anti-lock brake connector. You may want to move this out of the way. And if you wanted the extra room, you can remove this spare tire, which I still have in place here, which is making it slightly difficult to get back here. Alright, so here we go. That's the old unit. And then we also have this tiny one here that I think was an 8mm. I had to get a special wrench for this when I did it originally. Let's see. This is 9mm, 8mm. Yeah, 8mm. So let's get this ABS line out of the way. Just so you can see. There we go. That's this piece. So this is the new unit. I'm just going to put the new bracket on there and reattach. Alright, so now we have this reattached. I'm going to go ahead and wait to connect this. We have to do the controller next. So we're going to go ahead and put our analog brake cable back into place. Alright, this guy's going to end up going there. Alright, let's go do our control sensor. Okay, this is our old one. See the part number 28581-7S600. This is the new and revised part number that I bought used. So we're going to install this one. And the bolts just have a Phillips head on it, and we're going to screw it in. So we'll just plug it back in. Hopefully this unit works, and then it gets screwed back in. It's very difficult to get in here, in those two holes here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright guys, we have a Consult tool hooked up right here. So we're going to go ahead and connect. Okay, we're connecting to Consult. It's a Pathfinder Armada 2004. Okay, we know we're going to be doing the air leveler, so we're just going to go right to that. Otherwise it'll detect everything. Okay, so we're in the air levelizer. We're going to go ahead and do some configuration. So we're going into repair. Alright, so we want to clear the height. Okay, so wipe the memory. Okay, the compressor just turned on. Just stopped. It says adjustment is complete. So I'm not sure if it's done yet. I'm going to have to test drive it to see if it's functioning right. The compressor should be turning on. So we'll mess with it a little bit more and I'll get back to you.